Hi there everyone. In this video I'm gonna show you how you can add an admin panel to your application in order to manage all the users of your application and their data. I'm gonna be working on a form web application that I did in the previous video where I'm gonna give the admin the right to manage the users and also the questions posted on the application. So let's start right now. So firstly, let's go to our Visual Studio and go to program.cs. So in our identity service, firstly, we need to add roles in order to create an admin role. So we just need to write add roles with an identity role as a parameter. Next, we need to go on the bottom of the page above the app.run, and here we can create the roles for our users in our application. We actually did this in our previous video where I showed how you can add user roles. So basically we just need to create a scope variable firstly. And we just need to add a service create scope to this variable. Then we are just defining a variable of a role manager. And we're giving it the value of scope that service provider that get required service. Here in the parameters, we will write a role manager and identity role. Basically, all this does gives us the service to be able to manage the roles of our application. And here we usually have a variable of, I'm naming it roles, where we usually store an array with the names of the roles that we want for our application. So we can create this by ourselves. We can name them whatever we want. I am just creating one single role, which is the admin role for our application for this video. And basically this now is just a practice where we loop through all the roles and check if they are created. If they are not created, then we can assign them as roles to our application. In our case, we have one singular role, but this is a good practice to make this in a for each loop. So we check if the role already exists. If it doesn't exist, then we store the role, we create the role. So yeah, we create an identity role, which gets a parameter of the role. And this was it. With these lines here, we created the admin role. We just need to run our application. After this is done, we just can go to the Server Explorer. We open our tables of the database connection, and we'll go first to the roles, to the ASP.NET roles. We see here the admin role is created. I'm just getting the ID in order to make one of our users as an admin. So in the user roles table, I'm here storing the role ID that I just copied. And next I'm just gonna copy the ID of one user. I'm taking the Mason user. I'm taking its ID I'm storing it in this table here. And just by clicking enter, we basically here just assigned the Mason to the admin role. So that was it to assign an admin. I showed this in the previous video as well. I'm now just going to the layout page in order to make a list in the navigation bar. Basically, I'm just going to make a navigation item only to be visible only by the admin. So I'm checking if the user is in a role of the admin. Then this navigation bar will be visible. And I'm just going to go to Bootstrap in order to take a drop-down navigation item, which is something new for you to learn in the tutorial, but it's actually it would be very useful in our application. So I'm just going to the nav bar in Bootstrap, and here you can see the drop-down icon button. I'm just copying here this list class that begins with navigation item drop-down. I'm copying it down as it is. Just be careful to copy it from the latest version of Bootstrap. I'm pasting it down here. And above, I'm just changing the name here to make it admin or admin panel, but just admin is fine. And down here, when we have the links, I'm just gonna leave two. In one of them, I'm just gonna be storing the application users. So I'm just making users, or I'm writing it as managed users. And the next one, I'm writing here manage the questions of the application. And then the href reference, I'm gonna be filling out a little bit later. So I'm just running the project firstly to see how this looks like. Okay, I have to log in with an admin in order to see this navigation item. So firstly, you cannot see it. But if you log in with Mason, which was the admin, you should see a drop-down navigation item shown there. Okay, here you can see the admin nav item. It has a drop-down menu, and here you can see manage users and manage questions. They don't direct you right now to anywhere, but we will fill this later. So I'm just gonna go to the controllers and add one controller. I'm naming it AdminController, and here we'll make all of our methods in order to handle the users and the questions of the application. So I'm taking an empty template and naming this AdminController. Okay, so here firstly I'm gonna need a constructor for this controller, and as a parameter, so I'm just gonna type tab, and as a parameter I'm gonna be needing the user manager, which is basically just a class in ASP.NET Core identity, which has a bunch of methods with which we can manage users. It takes an identity user as a parameter, and a user manager is the name that I'm giving it. And if you click Control dot here, you should click on Create and Assign Field User Manager, which basically just creates one private read-only variable here, and it assigns the value of the user manager. It assigns the value of this variable that was created above. For the first method, I'm just going to be naming it list users. I'm making it an async await method because we will get data from the user manager. I'm just getting a variable of users, and we'll get from the user manager, we'll get the users dot to list async, which basically just prints out all of the users of the application. And then I'm just returning the view with the users, and I'm gonna need to go to views and add a folder for the admin views. I'm naming it admin, and inside of it I need another view page for the list users. So basically we're getting all the users of the application, passing it to the view, and then here we need to display all of those users. On top of the page, we need to write using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Identity. And then the modal needs to be IEnumerable. With a parameter of identity user. So this just basically stores kind of a list with all of the users. I'm taking a header and writing there a list of all users. Just something to show what the page has. And here I'm just going to be storing all of the data in a table. I'm giving it a class of table, which is just some bootstrap styling. In the t-head tags, we write what we want in our table header. So basically the names of the columns. And in the first row, in a row tr, which are the row tags, we will store each of the individual columns of the header, so the names of the header. And firstly, we need to get, I think it's good to take the username of the user, the email, and the password. We actually cannot see exactly the password. We only can see the hashed password because because of the way that we have stored the password in our database, but that's just fine. Next, in the table body, here we need a for each loop to loop through each element of the identity users and take the information for the username, for the email, and for the hashed password. So for each var item in the modal, we need a table row for each item, and inside the table row we need to store the information inside table data tags td. Here we write at item.username, and we can copy this, and we can do the same thing for the email and at item.email, and we can do the same thing for the hashed password, for the password hash. Okay, so I'm just running the application to see what we can see until now, or if we've done any errors. Okay, I need to go to the layout page in order to specify the route. So in this href tag here, but I'm just gonna be taking this ASP controller, and it was the admin controller, and then the ASP action tag helper. We write there the name of the action or the name of the method. Right now, it should take us somewhere. Okay, we'll go to manage users, and there is an error. I think I've done something in the list users method. Okay, so basically what I've done wrong here, this is an async await method, and I forgot to write the await keyword here when we take the users. Let's just run the application again. Okay, now everything shows here. We can see 2 users of our application, Mason and James. We can see their email and their hashed password. And we actually would want a delete button there, because what I'm doing here is the admin has the possibility to see all of its users and being able to delete them if a user is not, I don't know, it's not appropriate or something. So I'm just gonna write an HTTP post method here to delete the users. I'm making it an async await method as well. This takes a string of ID because the users have an ID of string. Here I'm just taking a variable of user, and I'm taking from the user manager, I'm find by ID async. We give them the ID in the parameter, and I'm just gonna check if the user is null to return a not found page. Otherwise, we are just gonna delete that user. So the logic is the same as what we do when we create a CRUD operations in the normal controllers. We are just doing this by using the user manager, not the context in our case. So I'm writing await user manager dot delete async, and I'm giving there the user as a parameter. And I'm just returning view, the view of list users, which is the page with the table of all of the users. And of course, I'm gonna need to go in the list users view page and add the table data with the button to delete. So I'm first gonna need a form that has an action, which is the name of the method, of the delete user method. The method is post. And in order to take the user, we need the ASP route ID attribute here to specify the ID of the user. We can do this by writing at item.id. And inside the form, we only need a button of type submit. So type submit. And I'm giving it a class to style it, to make it like a red button. So button and button danger, which is the bootstrap class for it. And inside the button tags, I'm just writing delete. So it shows in the view. I'm just running the application. I think I have an error. I probably forgotten a wait keyword again. So this, you always should not forget that when you make an async await method. But we should see the buttons now when we refresh the page. Here they are. I'm deleting James because Mason is our admin. And okay, we have a conflict in the database, and this all happens because our users are connected to the comments and to the questions of the application, which basically means when you can see the application, if we delete a user, the user is connected with a post, so a question or a comment. And what we need to do in our case, which happens in real life as well, so when you delete a user, we should make it so its questions and its answers are also deleted. And we go to the questions and the users, and where we see the user property, we should write a data annotation of required, which basically means that the user is required for this answer and for this question. And in case the user is deleted, then the question or the answers of the user will also be deleted. So by just writing required, when we connect the models to our users, this just makes all the work that when a user is deleted, what is related to the user is also deleted, so the question and the answer will also be deleted. If you have tried this in real life, when you delete an Instagram account, for example, all of your comments or all of your likes will also disappear. So it makes sense to make it this way. But I'm just going to need to upgrade to add the migrations because we changed the models. I'm just naming it second migration because I only had one migration in this project. Just gonna need to update the database now. And I hope I don't have any errors, but there shouldn't be any. Okay, if we run the application now, I think we will see the James user disappear. Okay, we'll just go to the admin. Okay, we can do it one more time. Okay, so this basically says that the view page has a null object, which the error here is because we are returning the view of list users without an object. But in our case, we can just write here redirect to action to the list users page. And when we make it redirect to action and not return view, we don't have to pass here an object with the users. So whenever we have a functionality of delete or so, it's better to make redirect to action. So the user was deleted, and we also see that its posts, its questions, and the comments of the user were also deleted. We can see we only have the Mason now. And what we can do now is we can just do pretty much the same thing with the questions of the application. So I'm just gonna need to, in the constructor of the controller, I'm gonna need to have also our context as a parameter, just the way we do it in our normal controllers, because we need to get the questions of the application from the context. Here just type control dot and here create and assign field context. So I'm just copying here the list users method because it's pretty much the same. I'm renaming it to list questions. And here in the variable, we need to get the data from the context, not from user manager. Dot questions, dot to list async. And what we can do in the view pages that we need to create now. So we need to create a list questions view page. We can just actually go to our question controller and copy the index page because it's pretty much the same. So I'm just going to the index page of the questions controller. I'm just copying this here and I'm just I'll make a few changes, I think. Okay, so I'm just changing the header. And I think I'm gonna delete this also, so I just gonna take the title and the description of each question. Let's just go to the layout and change and write there so where this navbar item goes, so just the action of list questions and we specify there the controller of the admin. Go to manage questions, we can see the list of all of the questions of the application. And all we need now is just to make a delete method. I'm actually going to go to the questions controller one more time and I'm copying there the delete confirmed method because it's pretty much the same with just a few changes, I think. But no, it should be pretty much the same. So I'll just make it an HTTP post method. I'll name it delete question. It takes an ID, an int ID. I'm just deleting the first lines there. Okay, the context doesn't have the end underline. I'm leaving the rest pretty much as they are, so just the context name was not right. And this needs to redirect to the list questions method. Okay, it looks okay. I'm just gonna go now to the list questions page and write here a button, a form, and a button inside of it to delete the questions. So here we just specify with the tag helpers, ASP action, the name of the method. The method is get, and an ASP route ID attribute in order to store there the ID of the question, the ID of the question which we want to delete. So pretty much just what we did in the users when we were deleting users. Just a button of type submit with a class of button and button danger. And here I'm just gonna write delete. Okay, so if I run the application now, should see some red buttons here appear. Okay, I'm just gonna try to delete one of those. And it worked. So one last thing I didn't do is we need to write the authorize tag in the AdminController class. So we need to authorize only roles of admin to this AdminController, because this way, even when some user can go to the URL link of the admin, they can't access it. So this was pretty much what I had prepared for this video. These were the two functionalities that I think that I did for our admin panel. Some people I've seen that they make it so the admin can also edit the users, and it pretty much doesn't make sense, because when you have an application, the admin is supposed only to see the data of the users or all of the questions of the application, and to be able to delete them if they are not appropriate. I don't think it would make sense to be able to edit the users or the questions. But yes, this was it for this video. I think you learned a few things, and I hope to see you in the next video. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next video.